Persona 4 isn't just a mystery-solving adventure. It's a study of personal accountability and growth. While the game's protagonists confront their shadows to overcome denial and self-deception, there's actually a darker message woven into the story. One that's pretty easy to overlook. This warning comes in the form of Tohru Adachi, a seemingly incompetent and lazy detective who hides his true nature behind a calculated facade. Adachi embodies weaponized incompetence, the deliberate act of feigning ineptitude to manipulate others, shirk responsibility, and pursue hidden agendas. From his clumsiness to his constant avoidance of work, Adachi uses his bumbling image to avoid suspicion while at the same time steering events to suit his needs. At first glance, Adachi seems pretty harmless. His antics, dodging tasks, and playing the fool make him appear as though he's barely keeping up with the demands of his job. His self-depreciating humor and lackadaisical attitude draw a surprising amount of sympathy, especially from those around him like Dojima, who dismiss him as a well-meaning but inept subordinate. But as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that Adachi's incompetence is not an accident. It's a weapon he wields with chilling precision. This makes Adachi's character both compelling and unnerving at the same time. Unlike overtly malevolent villains, Adachi's manipulation lies in the mundane. He doesn't come across as a mastermind plotting elaborate schemes. Instead, he exploits everyday situations, turning small acts of negligence and avoidance into tools for control. His story forces us to reflect on the ways people wield incompetence to their advantage, not just in fictional narratives, but within their own lives as well. Through Adachi, Persona 4 critiques not only individual apathy, but also a societal tendency to excuse or overlook such behavior. His character is a stark reminder that even small, seemingly harmless actions can actually have devastating consequences when they're part of a calculated effort to evade accountability. This isn't just a story about one man's deception. It's a call to examine how negligence and avoidance affect the people around us. At the end of the game, Adachi's downfall isn't just a revelation of his crimes. It's a powerful statement about the dangers of unchecked apathy and manipulation. In this video, we'll unpack the layers of Adachi's behavior, connect his actions to real-life examples of weaponized incompetence, and explore the deeper themes that his character represents. When we first meet Adachi, he's a rookie detective who seems harmlessly out of his depth. He complains about menial tasks, fumbles his responsibilities, and overall he acts like someone unfit for serious work. To those around him, he's little more than just comic relief, a clumsy assistant overshadowed by his superior Dojima. But this harmless image is a carefully constructed mask by Adachi. Adachi's incompetence is strategic. By leaning into this persona, he ensures that no one sees him as a threat. He blunders, whether spilling sensitive information to the investigation team or accidentally mishandling evidence, are framed as genuine mistakes. In reality, they serve his agenda, keeping suspicion off of him while he covertly manipulates events. This facade works so effectively because it taps into societal expectations. People are naturally inclined to assume the best intentions in others, particularly when someone appears to be trying but is struggling. Adachi uses this to his advantage, deflecting criticism and evading responsibility under the disguise of being overwhelmed or experienced. The patience and the leniency extended to him allow him to operate without scrutiny, even as his small, deliberate actions quietly steer the investigation away from his own involvement. Consider his slip-ups, such as when he shares critical case details with the investigation team under the pretense of casual conversation. While these moments appear harmless, they very subtly manipulate the team's focus, pushing them in directions that suit Adachi's agenda. Even when his carelessness frustrates Dojima, it reinforces the idea that Adachi is incapable of being anything other than a bumbling subordinate, ensuring he remains above suspicion. This mask of mediocrity isn't just about avoiding responsibility, it's about control. By feigning ineptitude, Adachi shapes how others perceive him, keeping himself in a position where his true motives remain hidden. His calculated negligence becomes a shield, allowing him to continue his crimes while others dismiss him as harmless. What makes this so chilling is how easily his behavior mirrors real-world examples of weaponized incompetence. In the workplace, in relationships, or even among your friends, there are those who rely on perceived ineptitude to avoid accountability and shift burdens onto others. Adachi's character amplifies these everyday tactics into something far more dangerous, showing just how destructive such behaviors can be taken to the extreme. Adachi's blunders may seem trivial, but their cumulative effort is devastating. They allow him to stay under the radar, manipulate those around him, and ultimately create a web of negligence that harms everyone involved. By the time his true nature is revealed, the damage he's caused is irreparable, a testament to the power of weaponized incompetence when it's left unchecked. Now, Adachi's behavior towards Mayumi Yamano and Saki Konishi reflects his selfishness and entitlement. But what makes him especially dangerous is how he uses his persona of incompetence to both deflect blame and manipulate events in his favor. While his motivations initially stem from his inappropriate behavior and bitterness, it's his ability to cover up these actions through weaponized incompetence that reveals the game's true warning. Adachi uses people's assumptions about him, his harmless demeanor, his role as the inexperienced rookie detective, to evade suspicion and accountability for what he's done. When Adachi throws Mayumi Yamano into the TV, it happens during a heated moment, and Adachi himself admits that it was accidental. He knew about the rumors of the Midnight Channel but didn't realize the TV world was real or that this action would lead to her death. However, once Yamano disappears, Adachi doesn't panic or confess. Instead, he leans into this bumbling image to ensure no one connects him to her disappearance. He pretends to be just another cog in the investigation, fumbling his way through tasks and dismissing himself as the low guy on the totem pole. By embracing his persona of harmless incompetence, Adachi is able to then shield himself from suspicion and ensure that the focus stays elsewhere. Now, this situation escalates with Saki Konishi, who saw Yamano's body and became an inconvenience to Adachi. After rejecting his advances and calling him out, Adachi throws her into the TV as well. This act, unlike Yamano's, is actually deliberate, and Adachi rationalizes it as something no one would believe. After all, who would really suspect a useless detective of orchestrating something so unthinkable and sinister as that? Adachi hides behind both his position of authority and his incompetence, knowing full well that the combination makes him untouchable. He's a cop, someone who's supposed to help solve crimes. And the persona that he plays ensures that no one will really see him as capable of committing these acts. Adachi's manipulation of Namatame is another example of how he wields his incompetence as a tool. When Namatame tries to warn the police about the Midnight Channel, Adachi is the one who picks up the call and intentionally dismisses him, feigning disinterest and claiming no one would believe such a story. But here's where this facade of cluelessness becomes most insidious. He then encourages Namatame to handle it on his own, planting the idea that leads to even greater chaos. This isn't incompetence in this case. It's manipulation disguised as carelessness, delivered in the same offhand, disarming manner that makes people underestimate him. The Midnight Channel chaos is the culmination of Adachi's strategy. He hides in plain sight, deflecting blame while perpetrating the fear that grips Inaba. When he accidentally leaks information or stumbles into the investigation team, his incompetence becomes a convenient excuse for his behavior. People assume he's clumsy, lazy, or simply not taking the case seriously, but in truth, every mistake buys him time and ensures no one connects the dots. Adachi benefits from being overlooked, proving that weaponized incompetence isn't a passive failure. It can be a deliberate cover for malicious intent. What makes Adachi so unnerving is the contrast between how he's perceived and who he truly is. To people around him, he's just a charismatic fool, clumsy, lighthearted, and harmless. But beneath that facade is someone truly cold, manipulative, and calculating. His bright image doesn't just shield him from scrutiny, it actively enables his actions, allowing him to manipulate events while everyone dismisses him as useless. This is the core warning Persona 4 delivers. Weaponized incompetence isn't always about avoiding responsibility through failure. Sometimes it's a tool that allows people to act without consequence, hiding their malice behind a mask of ineptitude. Beneath Adachi's clumsy facade lies a destructive worldview that fuels both his actions and his use of weaponized incompetence. For Adachi, life is a meaningless game, and his manipulations are justified by his deep cynicism and nihilism. He mocks the investigation team's pursuit of truth and accountability, dismissing their hard work as naive and pointless in a world that, to him, is inherently selfish and uncaring. This philosophy isn't just a backdrop for his crimes, it's actually the driving force behind how he behaves and how he hides behind his carefully crafted image. Adachi's resentment towards society runs deep and colors his every decision. In his social link, he openly laments about how he followed the rules, getting good grades, earning a respectable job, but often feels betrayed when success and satisfaction don't come to him effortlessly. Instead of examining his own flaws, this bitterness festers into a convenient excuse. He frames himself as a victim of an unfair system, using this resentment to justify his harmful actions and his refusal to try. It's here that Adachi's use of incompetence becomes more than just laziness. It becomes an active rejection of accountability, a way to lash out at the world without ever having to truly take the responsibility for himself. This mindset bleeds into how Adachi treats others. To him, people are not individuals with inherent value. They're either tools to be used or obstacles to be removed. This is most evident in his flippant comments about women, like reducing their worth to whether they can just cook or care for him. These moments reveal Adachi's entitlement and his refusal to engage with others in any meaningful way. It's easier for him to dismiss and exploit people than it is to form connections or confront his own insecurities. In a twisted way, his clumsy persona protects him from having to form these connections. It's far simpler to lean into his act of incompetence than to deal with the effort and vulnerability that come with genuine human interaction. Yet beneath this carefully constructed exterior lies a hypocritical desire for connection. Adachi, for all his cynicism, craves validation and understanding. In the fleeting moments of his social link, this vulnerability surfaces, like when he reluctantly accepts the kindness of an elderly woman who cooks for him. These interactions reveal a man torn between his need for connection and his inability to accept responsibility for himself. He isolates himself, resenting the very loneliness he creates, and then uses that isolation to reinforce his bitterness towards the world. It's a vicious cycle. His incompetence, both real and performed, becomes not just a tool for manipulation, but also a wall that separates him from others. This hypocrisy is just what makes Adachi such a compelling and unsettling antagonist. He blames the world for his unhappiness, yet every action he takes, every manipulation, every refusal to engage authentically, only just deepens his isolation. His incompetence may appear harmless on the surface, but beneath it lies a rejection for personal growth and connection. By leaning on his facade, Adachi avoids the hard truths about himself and instead chooses stagnation, bitterness, and destruction. Through Adachi, Persona 4 delivers a sharp critique of how entitlement, avoidance, and apathy corrode personal growth. While the investigation team's journey is defined by their willingness to confront their flaws, take accountability, and connect with others, Adachi represents the opposite path. His refusal to engage with his own weakness or take responsibility for his choices isolates him and leaves him hollow. In the end, his downfall isn't just about his crimes, it's the inevitable consequence of his worldview. Adachi is more than just the antagonist of Persona 4. He's the perfect foil to the protagonist and the investigation team. While the team's journey is defined by self-reflection, vulnerability, and growth, Adachi's path is one of avoidance, apathy, and stagnation. This dichotomy emphasizes one of the game's core themes. Accountability and connection lead to growth, while denial and isolation lead to destruction. Throughout the game, each member of the investigation team confronts their shadow, a manifestation of their repressed fears, insecurities, and flaws. These confrontations are raw and painful, but they're ultimately transformative. By accepting these darker aspects of themselves, the team members gain self-awareness and strengthen their bonds with one another. Their willingness to face their weaknesses head-on is what allows them to grow, both individually and as a group. Adachi, in stark contrast, refuses to confront his own flaws. Rather than facing his bitterness, entitlement, and apathy, he doubles down on them, using his facade of incompetence to manipulate others and evade accountability. His refusal to grow or change leaves him feeling isolated, bitter, and incapable of forming genuine connections. This isolation isn't just a result of his actions, it's a willing choice he makes, over and over again. The game highlights this contrast most vividly in the final confrontation with Adachi. While the investigation team stands united, having grown stronger throughout their shared struggles, Adachi stands alone, his facade finally stripped away. His mocking tone and nihilistic philosophy underscore just how deeply he's rejected the values that define the team. His story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of avoidance and entitlement. His unwillingness to take responsibility for his actions or engage with the world authentically leads to his downfall. In many ways, Adachi is a reflection of what the protagonists could have become if they had chosen to retreat from their challenges rather than face them. This stark contrast reinforces the game's central message, that growth requires effort, accountability, and connection, while disengagement leads to stagnation and harm. Adachi's downfall isn't just about justice for his crimes. It's a powerful reminder of what happens when we refuse to take responsibility for ourselves. His isolation stands as a warning against the path of least resistance, showing that the easier road often leads to self-destruction. Adachi's story isn't just a tale of personal failure. It's a profound commentary on the cost of apathy, avoidance, and weaponized incompetence. Through his character, Persona 4 delivers a powerful warning that choosing to disengage from responsibility doesn't just hurt the person doing it, it creates ripple effects that harm everyone around them. While the investigations team's journey is one of the growth, accountability, and connection routes, Adachi represents the dangers of choosing the opposite path. His calculated incompetence, rooted in bitterness and entitlement, allowed him to evade accountability and manipulate others. But in the end, it just left him feeling isolated and hollow, a prisoner of his own apathy. Persona 4 challenges us to reflect on our own lives. How often do we tolerate apathy, whether in ourselves or within others? How often do we excuse incompetence, not realizing the harm it can cause? The game's message is clear. Avoiding responsibility might feel easier in the moment, but in the end it leads to stagnation, disconnection, and ultimately harm. By rejecting Adachi's nihilism, Persona 4 offers a hopeful alternative. The investigation team's journey shows that meaning and connection are forged through effort, empathy, and accountability. Even in the face of uncertainty and hardship, the courage to confront our flaws and support one another leads to growth and understanding. Adachi's downfall is a reminder that the path of least resistance isn't a solution. It's a trap. His story invites us to look inward, confront our shadows, and choose the harder, more rewarding path of accountability and connection. It's a message that resonates far beyond the game, urging us to be better for ourselves and the people around us. So in the end, it leaves us with a choice. Will we face the truths within ourselves, or are we going to retreat into the fog like Adachi? The answer shapes not just our own lives, but the lives of those we touch. Just wanted to leave a quick message to thank every single person, whether it was constructive criticism or positive things, and just the overwhelming support that I got on my last video. I absolutely love this game, and it's been just a pleasure talking about it. And also, if you made it to the end of this video, I want to appreciate you so much for doing that, for taking the time out of your day. And yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna keep on working my best, doing my best to make these videos. It takes a lot of work, but ultimately when I'm able to finish, there's no other better feeling than that. I think definitely I want to make videos on Metaphor Refantasio, but I haven't even gotten close to finishing the game yet. I'm about halfway done. I also really love Yakuza, but there's about 3-4 games of that game series that I haven't played. And so probably maybe later down the road I can go ahead and look into those if you guys are down. But yeah, Persona's been a good feel out. It's been a good thing to talk about, and I'm looking forward to the next project that I make. So yeah, appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you.